Mom, I'm getting married! My mom looked surprised for a moment before smiling at me when I said this. Then she gently hugged me. That's great. I am so happy for you. She looked me in the eyes once more, her face swollen with tears. I have to tell your father about this. She then went to the place where my dad's picture was displayed. She sat down in front of it and I sat diagonally behind her. Darling, Sophia is getting married. With that, she stared at the picture. I also informed my dad about my marriage. Perhaps it was just my imagination, but the smile on my father's face in the photograph appeared softer than usual. By the way, Sophia, how old are you now? Mom turned around and asked me. Come on, I'm 25 years old. I see. It's already been 10 years since then. My dad died of sickness when I was in 9th grade. Since then, my mom and I have been living together. Sophia, thank you for being my daughter up to this point. I'll keep looking forward to spending time with you. My mom suddenly said that. Well, I'll have to prepare dinner. And then she hurriedly went to the kitchen. I had something important to say to my mom that day, but she beat me to it. I completely missed out, because she said exactly what I was thinking. My dad brought a new mother into our family when I was in 2nd grade of elementary school. I don't remember my real mother. Before the new mother came, the mom I knew was a lovely lady in the picture, smiling as she held me in her arms when I was a baby. About a year after this picture was taken, she became a star. When I was just a little girl, my dad quietly told me. So when my dad introduced me to my new mom one day, I was so excited and nervous that I hid behind him and fidgeted. Then she bent down in front of me, smiled and said, Sophia, nice to meet you. My new mom took very good care of me. She was always kind and sometimes strict. She always made snacks for me in the evenings, so I wouldn't be lonely because I was the only child in our family. I loved her pancakes and cookies. I was always happy to see my favorite family member when I returned home, because I was a latchkey child until the 1st grade of elementary school. Every day after class, I wanted to go home as soon as possible. I'd walk home with friends who were going in the same direction, but once we parted ways, I dashed the way home. My mom was good at cooking and sewing, and on sports days and field trips, I was secretly pleased that my close friends envied me. This person who was always by my side was the only mom I had. I was always by her side, as if to compensate for the time I had missed receiving attention from my mom. You two are always so close, my dad would sometimes say to me on purpose as if he was jealous. That's because I love my mom. Whenever I said that, my mom would smile kindly at me. But when I was in the upper grades of elementary school, I became vaguely familiar with the legal parent-child relationship. At first, I only assumed that this was similar to my situation. Then I started to wonder what my mom thought of me. I started to worry about what would happen to me if I had a younger brother or sister. She did not become distant, but I no longer stayed by my mom's side all the time, begging for her attention as I used to. My mom came to school on the day of class observation in elementary school. Then one of my close friends said something that made me very uncomfortable. You don't look much like your mom, do you? I knew my friend didn't mean to offend me in any way, but I was so shocked. I realized that no one recognized me as my mom's child. I felt depressed thinking about that. On the day of class observation, we were in math class, which I excelled at, but I never once raised my hand. You didn't appear to be in a good mood today. Is something going on? When I got home that day, my mom approached me with a worried expression and served me sweets as usual. No, it's nothing. That was all I could manage to answer. After that, I wanted more than ever to know what my mom thought of me. I thought about asking her several times, but I couldn't because I was afraid that mentioning it would ruin our relationship. About 3 years later, my cell phone rang one evening. I was studying for the middle school entrance exam, and my parents had finally bought me a cell phone for emergency contact when I reached 9th grade. I couldn't use it during class because it was against the rules. We were, however, permitted to use cell phones on our way to and from school. I checked my phone's display and discovered that my mom was calling. I assumed she had timed her call to coincide with the end of class. Hello? On the phone, she sounded terrified. We've got a problem, Sophia. Your dad collapsed. His office informed me that he was taken to the hospital. I rushed to the hospital as instructed by my mom. I was so panicking that I don't remember what happened after that. Good morning. It was the morning of the day after my dad's funeral. She was cheerful and bright as usual. I was depressed all the time because of the shock of losing my dad so suddenly. She was probably forcing herself to be cheerful because she was worried about me. I couldn't, however, be considerate of her feelings. For a while after that, I had very few conversations with my mom. When she tried to talk to me, I would just respond absently, and the days passed. About a week after my dad's death, I caused an incident. Do your best. My mom called out to me as I was getting ready to leave for school for the first time in a long time. For some reason, this casual phrase irritated me. What? Are you saying I'm not doing my best? I'm doing my best. You have no right to say that to me. I still can't explain why I said such a terrible thing. I wasn't addressing her as my mom. Of course, I didn't mean to harm her. I still vividly recall my mom's sad face at that time. For a while after that, my mom and I did not speak to each other at all. On the day of the parent-teacher conference to decide which school to attend, we had our first conversation in a long time. If you work a little harder, you will be able to attend a higher level school than the one you are currently pursuing. Why not give it a shot? My homeroom teacher said to me, I had considered attending that high school several times. Despite the fact that it was a public high school, it was about 40 minutes away by bus and train from my house. The cost of commuting to school would be ridiculous, and I was thinking of going to a high school near my house that I could walk to. If you want to go, I'll back you up. I'm not going to tell you to do your best. Go when you want to go. Mom will back you up. I'm not going to tell you to do your best. Go when you want to go. Mom said that over dinner that day. I knew that, with my academic ability at the time, I was on the borderline, and there was no guarantee that I would be accepted. If I do not get in, I will have to attend a private school, which will be more expensive than a public school. This would impose a significant financial burden on the family budget. Even as a junior high school, I thought I understood the difficulty of raising a child on one's own. Given that I could never fail, I reasoned that I should attend a nearby high school. But my mom's expression was serious as she locked her gaze on me. Let me give it my all. I made up my mind. After putting in a lot of effort, I was accepted into the high school of my dreams. I was also able to enroll in a teaching college. After graduating from university, I worked as a teacher at a nearby elementary school. Then I fell in love with the man I met at my second school, and a year later, he proposed to me. My mom and I were having dinner as usual, the day before the wedding. We're having our last dinner together, so why not have a drink today? I was the one who said that. I said it casually, but she seemed to have planned it from the start. I assumed she had gone to the kitchen, but she returned with something in her arms. This wine was made in the year you were born. With that, she handed me a bottle of wine. I was curious why such a thing was prepared. I heard your father purchased it on the day you were born. She started to explain. Before I married him, your father wanted me to know everything about you. So he told me about what happened after you were born. Of course, he told me about your birth mother. At the same time, he told me about this wine. He said he bought it for the entire family to drink when you get married. I recall him saying it with a smile. So let's drink it today with your father. With that, she brought a picture of my dad. Then my mom and I discussed my father, the two of us, and about the man who would marry me and so on. Then, perhaps a little tipsy, she brought me a small cassette tape. I recognized it as coming from the answering machine we used to have in the house when I was a kid. A date was written on the cassette tape. The date was the day of my dad's funeral. That day, I was nervous and concerned about what would happen. So I called home from the funeral home, knowing full well that no one would answer. I thought your dad was listening. I told him everything that was on my mind. I believe this tape is the reason I've been able to work so hard up to this point. Even now, I believe this tape is the link between your father, me, and you. That's why I want you to listen to it too. Mom then stood up and went into the other room to get the old answering machine. Then, a little embarrassed, she pressed the play button. Immediately, I heard Mom's voice. However, it was more of a sob than a voice. She started speaking quietly after a few moments of sobbing. "Darling, what should I do now?" "I have no idea what to do. Please tell me. I should have talked to you more about what I should do." Sophia is, of course, our precious daughter. Regardless of what anyone says, I know that. But now that you are gone, I'm not sure I can raise her properly on my own from now on. But I know that if I whine, you will be worried. So I have made up my mind. I will live strongly from tomorrow. But please, allow me to whine for a moment. And please watch over us from afar. I couldn't stop the tears from welling up in my eyes from the middle of the recording. My mom's cheerful attitude was an act to keep me from being sad the day after my dad's funeral. I was still too young, even though I was in middle school, to understand how my mom felt. Mom was filled with anxiety and on the verge of collapse at the time, but she kept it hidden, so I won't be concerned. I finally understood. "Thank you, Mom." I looked at her as I said this, but she was sleeping peacefully. Mom was her usual self on the wedding day. She went around the room, greeting everyone politely, from relatives and acquaintances to my friends. The ceremony went smoothly, and then it was time to read my thank you message to my mom. The spotlights were shining on me. I began quietly reading a letter that contained memories of me, my dad, and my mom. I could hear sobs coming from everywhere in the hall, and I almost started to cry myself, but I held back my tears until the very end. I knew if I blew this opportunity, I'd never be able to tell my mother those words again. My eyes welled up with tears as I finished reading the message. When I looked at my mom beside me, she was holding back her tears and shaking her shoulders. She smiled when she realized I was looking at her. I suddenly remembered her expression when we first met, when she bent down on her knees and smiled at me. And as I finished reading the thank you letter, I kept repeating to myself the words I had always wanted to say to her. "Mom, thank you so much for being my mom up to this point. You will always be my mom."